our public land. They are a private company. They will make money off of this. And they plan to, in this process, at some point there will be a fence around the entirety of the park. They will close down the park, will close down the sidewalks. Nobody will be in there. And I remember probably 3 years back sitting in meetings talking about the park. And a high-ranking police official at these meetings were run by 3CDC, saying, we need to just put up a fence around this whole park. When we take it down, the folks that are there now won't be there anymore. And that's what they're doing. This is an effort to get rid of people who use the park now. We have, for the past several months, pushed them and said, hey, if you're redoing the park, you need to stagger the construction. You need to provide an alternative site so that we don't lose the park in its entirety for X number of months. People use it. And they consistently put us off, and just last week they said, no, we're going to shut it down entirely for an unknown period of months.
Okay. So when we think about the $47 million that's going into the park, right, and we look at the new School of Creative and Performing Arts, we look at the businesses that are creeping north and from downtown and over the Rhine. Right. As a community, what do you tell the community and your average citizen when they see that versus alcohol, bottles, their perceptions around crime? Mm-hmm. Is there any legitimacy to the issue that the park, which has been a bastion of homelessness for years, mm-hmm, and it's been a safe haven for them for years, are there any crime statistics that support that they're a hazard, mm-hmm, to our community? Because we don't know who's occupying the park. We don't know if they're sex offenders. There's a school right across the street. We don't know about whether or not it's used as an open-air drug market. What have we seen from the park, mm-hmm, that would say or give us pause, legitimate pause, mm-hmm, to saying we need to change that environment?
Yeah. First of all, there are no statistics or studies that would challenge anybody to bring anything to the table. There's nothing that says people who are homeless are dangerous. It just doesn't exist. Something that we've noticed, and I think this is, history will tell us that people have been doing this for a long time. Whenever 3CDC or the city wants to shut down something, be it Washington Park, be it Drop-In Center, be it Metropole Apartments downtown, they first start this campaign of this place is dangerous, these people are dangerous, and so obviously we got to get rid of it. Everybody's criminal. It's similar to saying we need to charge people who panhandle with something, saying these people are dangerous. There is nothing to back this up. One, nobody with a sex offense on their record sleeps at a drop-in center. That is a misconception. Nobody. And two, I live in this neighborhood. I work in this neighborhood. I almost never leave this neighborhood. And this idea that the park is just some dangerous haven of crime is wrong. You can walk through that park any time of day or night, and if you're not trying to pick something with somebody, you're going to be straight. You're going to be all right. They're not dope dealers inside the homeless community. They probably wouldn't be homeless if they were dealing dope. There's not gun runners inside the homeless community. Again, they wouldn't be homeless. It's this idea of tagging, scapegoating people. The other thing to consider is the powers that be have really tried to pit the homeless community and the drop against SCPA, or pit SCPA against, use the two as pawns. And we want to come out strongly and say, hey, we're cool with both. We've got good feedback from the folks at SCPA. We want to partner with them. The fact is that for 30 years, Washington Park Elementary was within less than a block away from Drop-In Center. I don't think I've ever heard any report of any incident between the school and the shelter, or a kid and somebody staying at the drop. So if you want to make the argument that Drop's got to move because SCPA, that either means that people who are homeless are now more dangerous, or the kids at Washington Park were less important. That's it.
And then we look at the renovation that's happening at Music Hall.
Right.
And so you see that strategically there's a lot happening around,
that's right,
in these communities. And it seems to me as if anything, it's as much about the look, mm-hmm, and the appearance as well. Because I love thriving cities. I love San Francisco. It's a beautiful city. It's a residential city. I love North Shore, Chicago. It's a beautiful city. Now in the near south side Chicago. I can personally say that I've looked at it and said there's got to be good things. To me is that I look at it from the other side of, are we doing, and I'd say in all fairness that we always ever addressed that 25% model, the treatment model, of looking at mental health services and those individuals with addictions. We, from our side, didn't look at the fair housing. We didn't look at the affordable housing option. And I think that is one of the opportunities, because if somebody makes $7 an hour, where are they going to stay?
That's right.
Because any apartment that they would stay in, they can't afford, because the prices have been boosted and adjusted because Section 8. So they know that we can have $600-700 rent for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, because it's going to be a Section 8 apartment. So our money's coming from the government. But then what happens to those individuals that don't qualify for Section 8? What happens to those individuals that are making $7 an hour, $8 an hour, and their ability to be able to afford? And so I don't think that we've come up with a solution to that. As you talk about that the majority of the individuals that are homeless are working either part-time or full-time jobs. And most people probably don't look at that. When you look at the increasing number of families that are seeking services from the Greater Cincinnati Coalition for the Homeless, when you think about our housing crisis in the state of Ohio, which is one of, I believe it's in the top 5 for foreclosures, Florida, and I think is number 1, and so you're looking at that. I mean, you look at the crisis that we're in, and we have to have a better response than what we're having. Oh, by the way, this is a live call-in television show. My name is Wendell Ellis. I'm sitting here with Josh Spring. He's the executive director of the Greater Cincinnati Coalition for the Homeless, discussing homeless issues, and particularly when we're looking at moving into the holiday season, there'll be a continued need, a great need for support and donations during this holiday season. We certainly want and promote your participation, whether it's donations to the Free Store Food Bank, to a local food pantry. There's a lot of goodwill that we can give out there. And you can give to the Goodwill as well. So when we think about, we had heard recently that City Council had also talked, and this isn't big on City Council, we love City Council, but they had also talked about not funding shelters that house panhandlers that aren't registered. Right. Well, I mean, what happened with that legislation?
This is what happened. In a little bit of context, in the early 90s, the Coalition for the Homeless developed something called minimum standards for shelters. So basically it's an inspection process where we make sure shelters are up to par and deserve funding, that they should continue. It was developed because there were some really ratty shelters that need to be shut down at that time. For years, both United Way funding and city funding have been connected to those. And we always treated it like, well, if you're not up to par, we want to work with you to get you up to par so that you're treating your people better. And within this last year, City Council decided that they wanted to give minimum standards over to the Continuum of Care for the Homeless. Continuum of Care is a contracted organization required by the federal government where money's passed through. It's a pass-through agency. And we were adamantly against that because they work for the government. They don't have the ability to say, no, we won't put some crazy requirement into these standards. We won't make these standards political. They don't have that ability because they are contracted by the government. We are not. They passed that. They gave it over to the Continuum, and right in the midst of that, like we predicted, they added in this bit about panhandling, saying if somebody is known to be panhandling in the community, there need to be consequences at the shelter for this person. Now you got to think about it. Logically, what consequences can a shelter give an adult man or woman? You know, it's not, you don't get a pillow tonight, you don't sleep, sleep in the corner. It's,
no food for you.
You don't stay here. That's the consequence. And, you know, and if, by the way, if the shelters, yes, if they didn't do this, they wouldn't be eligible for the city funding. So we have an outstanding federal lawsuit against the city. Joined us, one of our member organizations has joined the suit, and then a man who is homeless and panhandles and stays at a shelter has joined the suit. We believe that we're poised to win because of the precedent we set years ago with panhandling law. You know, just the fact you can't keep somebody from shelter because they asked you for a dime.
And also the fact that you already established it in law, and you already have an established agreement with the city that outlines under what circumstances you can panhandle. So that's making panhandling no longer illegal in certain areas. So then now how can you then, that's almost like double jeopardy. So it's in essence a level of double jeopardy to try to get back at the panhandler through around the back door way.
And by the way, you know, I think the message to every Cincinnati citizen, whether you're conservative, liberal, somewhere else, is most people who are homeless aren't panhandling. Most people who live in this city aren't getting panhandled on a regular basis. So we really should be suspect when our council people are spending hours and money and lawsuits and all this to go after a few people that are panhandling.
Yeah, that would be interesting for us to look at the amount of resources that's put into fighting panhandling, to registering panhandling, to have an office where we have panhandlers register, and then now then fighting a lawsuit against them about the housing of homeless panhandlers. And that's hysterical. I mean, it's as if somebody got really pissed off one day because they were asked for money.
That's right. That is right.
Outside of City Hall, somebody, you got some money? Got some spare change? How about a cheeseburger? And so it seems to me that moving forward, that our communities just have to do a better job. I mean, I wonder about it because of what I see. Just walking in here today, I saw a gentleman from Genesis hanging out in Washington Park. He has a job, and you know he appears to be doing okay, being able to survive. And I think that part of what we look at is the overall survival, and particularly given these economic times that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. And somehow now we have this expectation that everyone in our community is going to thrive. That's not possible. And so I think that then we're following that up with, I mean, I think this whole American dream has been oversold. That part of what got us into the housing crisis was corporate greed, banking greed, and then also everyone believing that they needed the American dream of a house, a picket fence, and a dog named Scruffy and 2.3 kids. And so then then the banking industry or the lending industry and all these mortgage companies bouncing up and popping up on every street corner, like liquor stores in the hood, started now giving out mortgage loans and then selling those loans back to Freddie and Fannie. Similarly, I think that part of our challenge is, and it's going to be one that you're going to be certainly dealing with for some time, is the success of our downtown, the success of our over the Rhine, because it is looking good. I mean, Vine Street is creeping up. I mean, you're talking about 12th Street, 13th Street. Now you're starting to look at businesses, cafes, restaurants. We have a little Segway rental, and all of that is going to be in direct conflict with what you do and the community that you serve, simply because you serve such an unpopular community. When we think about, what would your thoughts be, or what would your message be to individuals out there that are in an advocate role for you and can support your efforts, for you to balance in saying, hey, this is our reality, these are the needs, these are the voices we need in the community, whether it's affordable housing or whatever.
Well, and one, to respond somewhat to this idea to Vine Street and the Gateway Quarter and all this, the coalition certainly isn't against new businesses. We're not even against condos, not even luxury condos. But it's the general concept that in this neighborhood, it's documented, there are 500 vacant buildings. We could develop luxury condos, luxury apartments, and high-end retail stores from here to eternity and never displace anyone. But 3CDC has chosen to displace people.